The electromagnetic pulse hit the meridian's edge like a cosmic sledgehammer, sending sparks cascading from overloaded circuits throughout the research vessel's cramped corridors. Tobias Wright barely managed to catch himself against a bulkhead as the artificial gravity fluctuated, making his stomach perform what felt like a zero-G ballet routine he definitely hadn't signed up for. "Well, that's not supposed to happen," he muttered, watching his coffee float past his face in perfectly spherical droplets. The maintenance engineer's toolkit scattered across the deck plating with a series of metallic clangs that somehow managed to sound accusatory. The ship's intercom crackled to life with Dr. Reeves's voice, tight with barely controlled panic. "All hands, prepare for emergency evacuation procedures. The diplomatic mission has been compromised. Repeat, we are evacuating immediately." Through the viewport, Tobias could see the planet's surface erupting with angry red flashes of energy weapons fire. The ancient spires of the Valerian settlement flickered between visibility and complete electromagnetic interference, like a badly tuned hologram having an existential crisis. Somewhere down there, the expedition team was fighting for their lives. "Tobias, get to Shuttle Bay 3, now." Chief Engineer Kowalski's voice boomed over the comm. "We need every hand for emergency launch prep." But Tobias wasn't moving toward the shuttle bay. Instead, he found himself pressed against the observation port, watching the chaos unfold on the planet's surface. His 3 months of studying Valerian culture and painstakingly learning their complex tonal language suddenly felt pathetically inadequate. All those hours practicing pronunciation with the ship's linguistic AI, all those cultural briefings about honor codes and warrior traditions, and for what? To watch from orbit as everything fell apart. A massive explosion bloomed across the settlement's eastern district, its shockwave visible as a ripple of disturbed atmosphere. The blast was close to where he'd last seen Nyx positioning herself for overwatch duty. Nyx, with her distinctive elongated ears that could detect atmospheric pressure changes from kilometers away, serving as the expedition's early warning system. Nyx, who'd spent patient hours teaching him the proper way to pronounce Valerian greetings without accidentally declaring war or proposing marriage. The shuttle bay doors were already cycling open when Tobias arrived, the magnetic barriers flickering as they struggled to maintain atmospheric containment against the planet's electromagnetic interference. Expedition members rushed past him in organized chaos, their faces grim with the particular expression humans wore when abandoning something important. "Right. About time." Kowalski grabbed his arm. "Help me secure the medical supplies. Half the team's coming back with injuries." "Where's Nyx?" Tobias asked, scanning the arriving shuttles. Kowalski's expression darkened. "She didn't make it to the rendezvous point. Held the line so the others could extract." He paused, then added more quietly, "She bought us time, Tobias. Without her, we'd have lost the whole team." Dr. Reeves appeared at Tobias's shoulder, his diplomatic composure cracking around the edges. "We can't wait any longer. The Valerian Empire's response fleet will be here within hours, and they're not going to be interested in explanations. So we just leave her." The words escaped Tobias's mouth before his brain could properly vet them. "We have 43 lives aboard this ship," Reeves replied, his voice carrying the weight of command decisions. "I won't risk them all for one person, regardless of species." The last shuttle sealed its airlock with a definitive hiss. Through the transparent aluminum barrier, Tobias could see wounded expedition members being helped to the medical bay. Lieutenant Chen had a nasty burn across his left arm from Valerian energy weapons. Dr. Martinez was unconscious, her atmospheric suit's chest panel showing concerning readings. But no Nyx. The Meridian's edge began its departure sequence, engines building to a low thrum that vibrated through the deck plating. Standard protocol demanded all personnel remain at their assigned stations during emergency jumps to hyperspace. Tobias should have been heading to his quarters to strap in for the transition. Instead, he found himself in secondary Shuttle Bay 7, staring at the Hummingbird, a tiny atmospheric craft primarily used for exterior hull repairs and short-range reconnaissance. The little ship was barely larger than a closet with delusions of grandeur, equipped with enough life support for maybe 6 hours and offensive capabilities that could charitably be described as strongly worded letter. "This is possibly the stupidest idea I've ever had," Tobias said aloud, running through the Hummingbird startup sequence. "And that's including the time I tried to fix the gravity generator while it was still running." The tiny craft's engines whined to life with all the confidence of a nervous chihuahua. Tobias strapped himself into the pilot's seat, which had apparently been designed by someone who believed humans were naturally pretzel-shaped. His fingers danced across the control interface, overriding safety protocols and emergency lockouts with the kind of casual disregard for regulations that would have given Chief Kowalski a heart attack. "Computer, open bay doors and prepare for atmospheric entry. Warning, departure not authorized by command staff. Warning, atmospheric entry in current electromagnetic conditions highly inadvisable. Warning, pilot appears to have lost his tiny human mind." "I don't remember programming that last one," Tobias muttered, engaging the manual override. The bay doors cycled open, revealing the planet's turbulent atmosphere below. Lightning crashed between cloud layers in colors that definitely weren't in any Earth meteorology textbook. The Hummingbird dropped away from the meridian's edge like a stone with trust issues. Tobias fought the controls as electromagnetic interference played havoc with the navigation systems, turning what should have been a smooth descent into something resembling a controlled falling with style. "Come on, girl," he coaxed the struggling craft. "Nix is down there somewhere, probably bleeding all over some ancient alien architecture and wondering why humans are apparently incapable of basic loyalty." The surface rushed up to meet him faster than he'd prefer, forcing him to fire retro thrusters at the last possible second. The Hummingbird touched down in what had once been a ceremonial plaza, now scarred with blast craters and the twisted remains of what might have been Valerian defensive positions. Tobias popped the hatch and immediately regretted several life choices as the planet's atmosphere hit him like a humid slap. His environmental suit's readings showed breathable air, but with an electromagnetic charge that made his hair stand on end and his teeth ache. The settlement around him was eerily quiet, its elegant spires and organic curves blackened by energy weapon strikes. Scorch marks decorated walls like abstract art created by someone with serious anger management issues. The distinctive architecture of the Valerians, all flowing lines and bioengineered materials, looked wounded in a way that went beyond mere structural damage. "Nix," he called out, his voice echoing strangely in the charged atmosphere. "Nix, it's Tobias. The guy who keeps asking where the bathroom is in your language." Silence answered him, broken only by the distant rumble of the planet's electromagnetic storms. He began moving through the settlement's winding pathways, following the trail of destruction toward where the heaviest fighting had occurred. His suit's scanner painted targeting overlays on his visor, highlighting energy weapon residue and biological traces. The trail led him to a massive temple complex built into the living rock of a cliff face. Ancient Valerian architecture merged seamlessly with natural stone formations, creating spaces that felt both artificial and organic. Blast marks scored the entrance columns, and the smell of ozone and burned circuitry hung heavy in the air. If I were a wounded alien warrior with trust issues and excellent hearing, where would I take cover? Tobias asked himself, stepping carefully over debris. Probably somewhere with good acoustics for detecting approaching threats, multiple escape routes, and ideally a gift shop. The answer came as a faint sound from deeper within the temple complex. A low, rhythmic pattern that his linguistic training recognized as Valerian breathing exercises used for pain management. He followed the sound through corridors lined with bioluminescent panels that flickered weakly, their organic circuits damaged by the electromagnetic pulse. He found her in what had once been a meditation chamber, slumped against a carved pillar that depicted some sort of Valerian historical scene involving people with very dramatic poses and impressive ear jewelry. Nix's usually pristine warrior's attire was torn and stained with the silver blue of Valerian blood. Her elongated ears, normally alert and mobile, hung limp against her neck. "Found you," Tobias said softly, dropping to his knees beside her. "Though I have to say, your choice in hiding spots could use some work. This place has terrible cell reception. Nix's eyes opened, large, luminous, and currently focused somewhere between annoyance and resignation. Human, she whispered in accented standard. You should not have come. Yeah, well, I've never been particularly good at should, Tobias replied, running his scanner over her injuries. The readings made him wince. Internal bleeding, possible spinal trauma, and something the medical database unhelpfully labeled as severe Valerian-specific systemic disruption. The others, she asked. Safe. Aboard ship. Probably halfway to the next system by now. He tried to keep his voice light, but something in his expression must have given away the truth. They left. It wasn't a question. They had 43 people to think about, Tobias said, unpacking his emergency medical kit. Command decisions, great or good, all that utilitarian mathematics that makes my head hurt. Nix's laugh was weak but genuine. And you stayed because? Because 3 months ago, you spent 4 hours teaching me how to say, thank you, without accidentally challenging someone to ritual combat, Tobias replied, applying a biofoam bandage to the worst of her visible wounds. And because my mother always said I'd probably die doing something stupid for someone else. Seemed like a waste to prove her wrong now. The biofoam bandages were holding, but Tobias could tell from the way Nix's breathing hitched every few seconds that her injuries ran deeper than surface wounds. Her elongated ears twitched occasionally, picking up sounds his human hearing couldn't detect, probably the distant rumble of search patrols or the electromagnetic interference crackling through the planet's upper atmosphere. Your medical technique needs work, Nix observed, watching him fumble with the emergency field kit's alien interface. Half the readouts were in Valerian script, which he could barely pronounce let alone interpret under pressure. I'm a maintenance engineer, not a doctor, Tobias replied, accidentally activating the kit's entertainment module. Soothing Valerian meditation music began playing at maximum volume, echoing through the temple chambers like a cosmic elevator soundtrack. My medical training consists of apply pressure to bleeding things and don't let the injured person see you panic. You are failing at the second part, Nix said, but her tone held a hint of amusement that hadn't been there before. Tobias managed to silence the music and locate what he hoped was the diagnostic scanner. So, on a scale of 1 to writing dramatic final words, how bad are your injuries? I have experienced worse, Nix replied, then winced as she tried to shift position. Though not frequently. The scanner beeped cheerfully and displayed results in 3 languages, none of which were standard. Tobias squinted at the readout, trying to apply his fragmentary knowledge of Valerian medical terminology. Okay, so this symbol either means minor inflammation or catastrophic organ failure. There's really not enough context clues. The first one, Nix said, reading the display. Though your pronunciation of catastrophic was admirably dramatic. Thunder rolled across the sky above them, carrying undertones that didn't sound entirely natural. The temple's bioluminescent panels flickered in response, their organic circuits struggling against the electromagnetic storm building outside. Through gaps in the ancient stonework, Tobias could see lightning dancing between the clouds in patterns that looked almost geometric. How long do these storms usually last? He asked, pulling out a thermal blanket from his emergency kit. 3 to 4 days during this season, Nix replied. The planet's magnetic field interacts with the binary star system to create cascading electromagnetic effects. It is quite beautiful, when you are not hiding in ruins waiting to be discovered by hostile forces. Right, about those hostile forces, Tobias said, wrapping the blanket around her shoulders. Any idea why they suddenly decided to redecorate your settlement with high-energy weapons? Nix's expression darkened. A misunderstanding that became a miscalculation that became a massacre. Your Dr. Reeves attempted to negotiate trade agreements without understanding our seasonal honor protocols. What he intended as respectful deference, they interpreted as mockery. Let me guess, cultural sensitivity briefings didn't cover how not to accidentally start wars through poor timing. Your species has a remarkable talent for transforming diplomatic situations into combat scenarios, Nix observed. It is almost artistic in its consistency. A distant sound made her ears snap to attention, their pointed tips swiveling like organic sensor arrays. Tobias froze, listening for whatever had caught her notice. To his human ears, the temple remained silent except for the storm winds and occasional settling stones. Patrol craft, Nix whispered. 2 kilometers northwest, moving in search patterns. They are using modified atmospheric skimmers, quiet, but not silent to Valerian hearing. How long before they reach us? 20 minutes, perhaps 30 if they continue their current search grid. She attempted to stand, silver-blue blood immediately soaking through the biofoam bandages. We need to move deeper into the temple complex. Or, Tobias said, pulling out his engineering scanner, we could make them not want to search here in the first place. He began analyzing the temple's power distribution systems, following conduit traces with his scanner's beam. These bioluminescent panels, they're connected to the main temple network, right? Yes, but the power grid was damaged in the attack. Most systems are offline. Most, but not all. Tobias grinned, the expression probably looking mildly unhinged in the flickering light. I spent 3 years maintaining the Meridian's Edge's atmospheric processing system. Half of that was jury-rigging solutions when the organic components decided to have nervous breakdowns. He began pulling tools from his kit, connecting bypass cables to exposed conduits with the practiced efficiency of someone who regularly performed electronic surgery under impossible conditions. The Valerians who built this place, they were basically showing off, right? All this flowing architecture and integrated biotechnology. The ancients were renowned for their artistic integration of form and function, Nix confirmed, watching his work with growing interest. This temple was designed to demonstrate harmony between natural and artificial systems. Perfect. Because if there's one thing engineers love, it's taking sophisticated systems and making them do things they were never designed for. Tobias connected his scanner to the temple's network, watching data streams scroll past in real time. Ah, here we go. Environmental control, atmospheric processing, and, jackpot, a full holographic projection system for religious ceremonies. What are you planning? Remember the electromagnetic interference that's been playing havoc with everyone's systems? Tobias asked, fingers dancing across his scanner's interface. Well, it turns out that works both ways. If I can modulate the temple's power grid to match the storm patterns outside, we can create a localized electromagnetic dead zone. The search parties will assume the area is too damaged to harbor survivors, Nix said, understanding dawning in her voice. Better than that, Tobias replied, initiating the program sequence. They'll think the whole complex is about to collapse from energy overload. Basic safety protocols will keep them well away. The temple's lighting began to flicker in erratic patterns, synchronized with the lightning flashes outside. Power conduits sparked convincingly, and the air filled with the sharp ozone smell of electrical discharge. Emergency warning signals activated throughout the complex, broadcasting automated evacuation notices in ancient Valerian dialects. There, Tobias said, settling back against the pillar beside Nix. Now we're officially a hazardous archaeological site experiencing catastrophic systems failure. Should buy us some time to figure out our next move. Impressive, Nix said. Though I should mention that you have just convinced the temple's AI that we are conducting emergency repairs during a religious festival, and it is now blessing our sacred work in ceremonial High Valerian. Is that bad? Only if you are concerned about accidentally participating in a marriage ritual. Tobias blinked. What? The specific blessing being invoked is traditionally reserved for couples undertaking joint spiritual endeavors, Nix explained, her expression carefully neutral. According to the temple's interpretation of our actions, we are now either married or about to begin a very serious courtship. I seem to have a talent for accidentally proposing to people, Tobias said weakly. This is at least the 3rd time since I started learning Valerian. The third time this month, perhaps, Nix corrected. I have been keeping count. Outside, the sound of patrol craft engines grew fainter as the search teams veered away from the apparently unstable temple complex. The electromagnetic storm continued to build, creating a natural barrier that would mask their heat signatures and communication attempts. They were effectively invisible, at least for the next few days. So, Tobias said, checking his emergency supplies, while we wait for rescue or divine intervention, want to teach me some more Valerian? I figure if I'm going to keep accidentally getting engaged, I should at least learn how to accidentally get divorced. In Valerian culture, accidental marriages are considered binding until both parties formally dissolve the contract, Nix replied, settling more comfortably against the pillar. Also, divorce rituals require a minimum of 6 witnesses and a ceremonial exchange of weapons. Of course they do, Tobias muttered. My mother always said I'd end up married to my work, but this wasn't exactly what she had in mind. The storm raged on outside, and somewhere in the distance, search patrols continued their fruitless hunt through the electromagnetic chaos. But in their small sanctuary within the ancient temple, Tobias and Nix had found something neither had expected. The beginning of understanding between two very different species, built on shared humor and the kind of trust that only emerges when everything else has gone completely wrong. The temple's emergency lighting had been cycling through every color in the spectrum for the past 6 hours, creating what Tobias had started calling the galaxy's most aggressive disco. The ancient Valerian AI seemed convinced that their presence constituted some sort of religious emergency requiring maximum visual stimulation and frequent announcements about purification protocols. It's trying to sterilize us again, Tobias observed, watching ultraviolet emitters activate in sequence along the chamber walls. I think it's concerned about our spiritual hygiene. The AI believes we are contaminated with foreign technological essence, Nix translated as ceremonial chanting began echoing from hidden speakers. It is attempting to cleanse our electromagnetic auras through exposure to sacred frequencies. My electromagnetic aura feels fine, thanks, Tobias said, though he had to admit the UV treatment was probably killing any bacteria they'd picked up during their escape. How long do these purification cycles usually last? According to ancient texts, anywhere from 1 hour to 17 days, depending on the severity of spiritual contamination detected. 17 days. Tobias's voice cracked slightly. Please tell me that's a translation error. I wish I could, Nix replied, wincing as she tried to adjust her position. The biofoam bandages were holding, but her injuries clearly needed more sophisticated treatment than his emergency kit could provide. Though I should mention that the AI has also activated the temple's defensive systems. We are now protected by a barrier field that would require military-grade weapons to penetrate. As if summoned by her words, a patrol craft's engines roared overhead, passing close enough to rattle the ancient stonework. The sound was followed by weapons fire, sharp energy bursts that painted the temple walls with brief shadows. The shots struck something outside and dissipated harmlessly, leaving only the ozone smell of dispersed plasma. Well, Tobias said, that's convenient. Though I'm starting to worry about the exit strategy portion of this plan. You had an exit strategy. I had the beginning of an exit strategy. Step 1, don't get killed. Step 2, figure out the rest later. He pulled out his scanner and began analyzing the chamber's energy readings. The good news is that the barrier field is powered by the planet's magnetic fluctuations, so it'll stay active as long as the electromagnetic storm continues. And the bad news? The bad news is that the storm is also interfering with my scanner's long-range communications array. I can't contact the Meridian's Edge or any other ships in the system. Tobias frowned at the readout. Actually, that's not entirely accurate. I can send signals, but they're being translated through the temple's communication system. Meaning what, exactly? Meaning any rescue messages I send will be broadcast in ceremonial High Valerian with religious formatting protocols. He showed her the scanner's display. According to this, my last attempt to signal for help was interpreted as a formal request for priests to come bless our sacred union. Nick's ears twitched in what he'd learned to recognize as suppressed laughter. You have summoned an entire monastery. I've what now? The temple AI has forwarded your message to the nearest religious facility, requesting immediate dispatch of certified marriage officiants. She studied the display more carefully. They are expected to arrive within 3 days, weather permitting. This is getting out of hand, Tobias muttered, then paused. Wait, 3 days? That means the storm will clear by then. If there are priests coming, there might be other Valerian ships in the area. Rescue ships. Possibly, Nix agreed. Though you should be aware that declining a formal marriage ceremony after requesting officiants is considered deeply insulting in traditional culture. So my choice is either get married or start an interspecies diplomatic incident. Those appear to be your options, yes. Tobias rubbed his temples, feeling a headache building behind his eyes. The UV sterilization cycle had finally ended, replaced by what sounded like Valerian meditation music performed by robots having existential crises. Let me see if I understand this correctly. We're trapped in an ancient temple that thinks we're getting married, protected by defenses that won't let us leave, waiting for priests who are going to expect us to actually go through with a wedding ceremony. That is an accurate summary, Nix confirmed. And if we don't get married, we'll offend an entire religious order and possibly cause another diplomatic incident. Almost certainly. But if we do get married, I'll be legally bound to someone I've known for 3 months, most of which was spent learning how to pronounce hello without accidentally declaring war. The marriage would be valid under both Valerian and human legal frameworks, Nix said helpfully. Though there are certain cultural expectations that would need to be addressed. Such as, Valerian marriages require both partners to demonstrate their commitment through acts of shared courage and mutual protection. Her tone was carefully neutral. Typically this involves joint participation in dangerous activities that prove the couple's ability to function as a unit under stress. We're hiding in an ancient temple while hostile forces try to kill us, Tobias pointed out. How much more dangerous do things need to get? Traditional marriage trials involve slightly more active participation, Nix replied. Fighting together, not merely surviving together. A new alert chimed from Tobias's scanner, drawing his attention to an energy signature moving through the temple's lower levels. The reading was wrong, too large and too organized to be wildlife, but showing as biological rather than technological. We've got company, he said, showing Nix the display. Something big is moving through the temple foundation. Multiple life signs, coordinated movement patterns. Nix's ears swiveled toward the floor, picking up vibrations his human senses couldn't detect. Guard beasts, she said after a moment. The temple AI has awakened the protective creatures that live in the lower chambers. Guard beasts, Tobias repeated slowly. And these would be genetically modified organisms created by the ancients to protect sacred sites. They are intelligent, territorial, and extremely protective of anyone the temple recognizes as legitimate occupants. So they're on our side. Unless we do something the AI interprets as sacrilege, Nix said. In which case they will attempt to remove us from the premises with extreme prejudice. The scanner showed the creatures moving closer, their biosignatures indicating something roughly the size of armored vehicles but with the movement patterns of apex predators. Whatever they were heading directly for the chamber where Tobias and Nix had taken shelter. Define sacrilege in this context, Tobias said, backing away from the chamber entrance. Theft of sacred objects, desecration of holy sites, violence within temple grounds, Nix listed. Also, abandoning a marriage ceremony once it has been formally requested. Of course, Tobias said weakly. Because my life wasn't complicated enough already. The sound of massive claws clicking against stone echoed from the corridor outside their chamber. Whatever was approaching, it was taking its time, moving with the patient confidence of something that knew it owned this territory. The temple's lighting shifted to a warm golden glow, and the meditation music changed to something that sounded distinctly ceremonial. "I think," Tobias said, watching the scanner as multiple large shapes positioned themselves around the chamber, "we're about to meet our chaperones." The first guard beast stepped into the light, and Tobias felt his brain temporarily short-circuit. The creature looked like someone had crossed a panther with a crystal formation and then taught it advanced tactical positioning. Its body was sleek and feline, but covered in scales that refracted the temple's light into prismatic patterns. 6 legs ended in claws that looked capable of carving through hull plating, and its elongated head held too many eyes, all of them currently focused on the 2 humans with predatory intelligence. "Beautiful," Nyx breathed, and Tobias realized she was right. Despite its obviously lethal capabilities, the guard beast moved with liquid grace, its crystalline scales catching and amplifying the chamber's bioluminescent glow. "Hello there," Tobias said carefully, remembering that the temple AI could presumably hear everything they said. "We're just, conducting emergency repairs and definitely not planning to desecrate anything or abandon any marriage ceremonies." The guard beast tilted its head, examining him with an expression that somehow managed to convey both amusement and mild disappointment. It made a sound like wind chimes having a conversation with a bass drum, and the temple AI immediately translated. "Sacred Guardian 73 welcomes the betrothed couple and inquires whether you require assistance with pre-ceremony preparations," the AI announced in perfectly cheerful standard. "Pre-ceremony preparations," Tobias repeated numbly. "It appears," Nyx said, her voice carefully controlled, "that we are now officially engaged." The Valerian rescue fleet arrived exactly 3 days later, their sleek ships descending through the clearing electromagnetic storm like cosmic cavalry. Tobias watched them through the temple's observation port while Sacred Guardian 73 helpfully groomed his uniform with crystalline claws that could probably cut through titanium. "I still can't believe we actually went through with the ceremony," he said, fingering the bioluminescent marriage band that the temple AI had synthesized from his scanner components and some sort of sacred crystalline matrix. "The abbreviated version," Nyx corrected, leaning against him for support. Her injuries had healed remarkably well over the past 3 days, aided by the temple's medical systems and what the AI insisted on calling matrimonial healing harmonics. Her ears were alert again, tracking the approaching aircraft with their usual precision. The full traditional ceremony would have required us to hunt dangerous prey together while reciting poetry. "I'm terrible at poetry," Tobias said. "My idea of romantic verse is engineering manuals that rhyme." "Your vows were adequate," Nyx replied diplomatically. "Though I believe you accidentally promised to maintain my atmospheric processing systems for eternity." "Well, that's not entirely inappropriate, considering my profession." He checked his scanner as the lead Valerian ship began broadcasting identification codes. "Looks like the cavalry includes some serious military hardware. 3 destroyers, 2 medical frigates, and something that registers as either a diplomatic vessel or a very fancy restaurant." "Knowing my people, possibly both," Nyx said. "The rescue fleet will include marriage witnesses, legal officials, and probably a small army of relatives who want to meet the human who accidentally courted their way into the family." The temple's communication system chimed with an incoming transmission, immediately translated into standard by the increasingly helpful AI. "This is Admiral Vextar of the Valerian Imperial Fleet, requesting immediate audience with the human Tobias Wright and warrior engineer Nyx. Please respond if you are capable of communication." Tobias activated his scanner's transmitter. "This is Tobias Wright. Nyx and I are both alive and in good health, currently enjoying the hospitality of your local ancient temple AI and its collection of terrifyingly efficient guardian creatures. Mr. Wright, we have been informed by automated religious channels that you have requested marriage officiants. Can you confirm your current status?" Tobias looked at Nyx, who shrugged with the expression of someone who had given up trying to predict how this situation could get more complicated. "Admiral, I can confirm that due to a series of communication errors, cultural misunderstandings, and what I'm beginning to suspect was deliberate manipulation by an ancient artificial intelligence, Nyx and I are now legally married under Valerian religious law." A long pause followed, filled only by the sound of Sacred Guardian 73 purring like a pleased engine. Finally, Admiral Vextar's voice returned, carrying what sounded suspiciously like suppressed laughter. Mr. Right, you appear to have solved a significant diplomatic crisis through the most unconventional means possible. I'm sorry, what? The attack on our settlement was orchestrated by a radical faction that believed humans were incapable of understanding Valerian honor codes, the Admiral explained. Your marriage to one of our most respected warriors, combined with your refusal to abandon her despite direct orders from your own command structure, has effectively proven their ideology incorrect. Nyx straightened beside him, her ears pricking forward with interest. The political implications are considerable, she said quietly. A successful human-Valerian marriage validates integration policies that have been debated in the Imperial Council for decades. So we accidentally became a diplomatic success story? Tobias asked. More than that, Admiral Vextar continued. The Valerian Empire is prepared to offer you both positions as cultural liaison specialists, with full diplomatic immunity and access to advanced technological research programs. Your unique partnership could serve as a model for future human-Valerian cooperation. Sacred Guardian 73 made its wind chime bass drum sound again, which the Temple AI translated as, Sacred Guardian 73 inquires whether the honored couple requires assistance relocating their belongings to more appropriate matrimonial quarters. I think, Tobias said slowly, we're about to get promoted. The extraction process took most of the day, largely because the Temple AI insisted on conducting a formal blessing ceremony for their departure, complete with light shows, harmonic resonance patterns, and what appeared to be a parade of every guard beast in the complex. Sacred Guardian 73 presented them with crystalline gifts that the AI claimed were tokens of eternal protection and really excellent emergency tools. The diplomatic vessel turned out to be exactly as luxurious as Tobias had feared, complete with quarters that were larger than his entire apartment back on Earth and a medical base staffed by specialists in both human and Valerian physiology. Admiral Vextar proved to be a distinguished older Valerian with elaborately decorated ears and a kind of bearing that suggested he'd seen enough diplomatic crises to find their situation more amusing than problematic. Your marriage has been recognized by the Imperial Council, he informed them during their first formal briefing. The legal documentation is being processed as we speak, along with your appointment papers and security clearances. Security clearances for what, exactly? Tobias asked. Joint Human-Valerian Research Initiatives, Nyx replied, reading from a data pad that had been provided with their new quarters. Advanced propulsion systems, bioengineering projects, and something called cross-species cultural integration protocols. Basically, Admiral Vextar said, you'll be helping us figure out how to work together without accidentally starting wars or proposing marriage to everyone we meet. I have a talent for both of those things, Tobias admitted. Though apparently my success rate with accidental proposals is improving. 3 months later, Tobias found himself standing in a research facility that still felt like something from a dream, watching Nyx calibrate a quantum resonance chamber with the kind of casual expertise that made his engineering degree feel quaint. They'd settled into their new roles with surprising ease. He handled the technical integration between human and Valerian systems, while she managed the cultural and diplomatic aspects of their joint projects. The atmospheric processors for the new colony ships are ready for testing, Nyx reported, her ears twitching as she detected minute variations in the equipment's harmonic output. Your modifications to the bioneural interfaces have improved efficiency by 37%. Not bad for someone who learned most of his xenobiology from emergency repair manuals, Tobias replied, reviewing the test data on his scanner. The device had been upgraded with Valerian biotechnology, turning it into something that could probably run a small starship if necessary. You've adapted well to working with living systems, Nyx observed. Though I still don't understand your compulsion to name every piece of equipment. It helps me think of them as partners rather than tools, Tobias explained. Besides, the atmospheric processor works better when you call it Gertrude and thank it for doing a good job. Human psychology remains baffling, Nyx said, but her tone was fond rather than critical. Their work was interrupted by an alert from the facility's communication system. Incoming transmission from the research vessel Meridian's Edge, the AI announced. Dr. Reeves requesting priority conference. Tobias and Nix exchanged glances. They'd had minimal contact with the expedition since their rescue, mostly formal reports and bureaucratic updates. Dar. Reeves appearing on their communication screen looked older, wearier, and significantly less confident than the man who'd made the decision to leave Nix behind. Tobias, Nix, he said, his voice carefully formal. I wanted to personally congratulate you on your recent successes. The technological advances you've achieved are remarkable. Thank you, Dr. Reeves, Tobias replied, matching his formality. We've had excellent support from the Valerian research community. I also wanted to apologize, Reeves continued, the words coming with obvious difficulty. My decision to leave without conducting a proper search and rescue operation was pragmatic, but it was also wrong. You've both proven that cooperation and loyalty can achieve far more than cold calculation. Sir, Nick said, stepping forward, your decision was tactically sound given the information available. Our success came from circumstances you couldn't have predicted. Perhaps, Reeves replied. But I've learned something important from watching your partnership develop. The galaxy is full of impossible situations that require impossible solutions. Sometimes the best strategy is to trust in people's capacity to surprise you. After the transmission ended, Tobias and Nick stood in comfortable silence, watching the binary stars set through the facility's observation windows. The electromagnetic storms that had once trapped them in an ancient temple now danced harmlessly across the planet's upper atmosphere, beautiful and distant. Do you ever regret it? Tobias asked. The way everything worked out, I mean. We never really chose any of this. Nix considered the question seriously, her ears tilted in the thoughtful position he'd learned to recognize. I regret that it took a crisis to bring us together, she said finally. But I don't regret the outcome. We work well as a team. Even if we did get married by accident. Especially because we got married by accident, Nix replied, moving to stand beside him. It means our partnership is based on choice rather than obligation. Every day we stay together is a decision, not a requirement. Tobias smiled, remembering the terrified maintenance engineer who'd stolen a shuttle to rescue someone he barely knew. That person felt like a stranger now, someone who'd lacked the confidence to trust his own judgment or the experience to understand that loyalty was a choice worth making regardless of the consequences. Besides, Nix added, her ears twitching with suppressed humor, where else would you find someone willing to listen to you explain atmospheric processing systems for hours without complaining? Nowhere, Tobias admitted. Though I still think you married me for my technical skills. Among other things, Nix agreed, and the way she said it made him think that maybe, just maybe, the universe's tendency toward chaos had finally worked in their favor.